You might think being polite gets you ahead. But what if being too nice is secretly costing you thousands? Studies show people who agree too easily often end up with lower savings and more debt.
Sounds crazy, right? But stick around. This may explain why you've been losing out without even knowing it.
What's really going on? The real issue: compliance versus kindness. Being kind, respectful, fair, doesn't mean you must accept a bad deal. Yet many of us do. We're trained to avoid conflict and keep the peace. Psychologists call this conflict avoidance, a form of people-pleasing that stems from a deep-rooted fear of upsetting others. In short, we're afraid of rocking the boat. In everyday terms, that means we often accept the first price or the first offer just to be polite, rather than pushing for what we deserve. We feel bad asking for more. But in the game of negotiation, hesitation and deference become our worst enemies. Quick stat: job seekers who negotiated their salary walked away with about $5,000 more than those who didn't. That's serious money left on the table. In other words, the price of niceness? It could be thousands of dollars, or tens of thousands over a career. And once you see it, you can do something about it. Here's the core insight: being nice doesn't mean you have to be compliant. You can still be friendly, professional, even empathetic, and advocate for yourself. Unfortunately, conflict-avoidant folks often assume the other side will feel offended if they push back. But guess what? Business is business. In fact, research calls this pattern the agreeableness penalty. The more agreeable, in other words nice, you are, the less likely you are to assert your interests in a deal. One Cambridge study found that highly agreeable people tend to avoid tough negotiation and end up with worse outcomes. If that's you, stay tuned. We'll fix that. Lesson 1: if you dread conflict, you won't negotiate. Think about rent negotiation. Tenant: sorry, I can't afford more, thanks anyway. Landlord: sold! That tenant avoided potential drama and walked away vulnerable. Conflict avoidance feels safe short-term, but it often backfires. Psychologists note that avoiding conflict compromises your interests. Every time you swallow your pride to keep the peace, you're effectively giving up leverage. In real life, imagine you're offered a car for $300 more than you planned. A naturally nice person might just smile and agree. But an assertive approach works better. Ask, "Is that the best price?" Or, "I was hoping for closer to X dollars." You'd be surprised how often a simple pushback yields an instant discount. Even on a humble cable bill call, instead of immediately thanking them for the first credit, hold your ground. Ask, "I appreciate the offer, but is that the best rate you can provide?" You'd force them to do better. Remember, most reps expect pushback. They're trained to give small wins to appease people who don't ask for more. Don't be that person. In short, protect your interests nicely but firmly. Don't just hope the world will do right by you. Lesson 2: anchoring against yourself. The anchoring bias is a classic. The first number mentioned becomes the reference point for the rest of the negotiation. The problem: if you're too polite, you might not challenge that anchor. Example: job interview. Research says $80,000 to $90,000 is fair, but the employer offers $70,000. If you immediately say, "Okay, thanks," you're anchored at $70,000 in your mind. Even if you must counter, your new anchor might be just $75,000 because you've subconsciously accepted $70,000 as the norm. Instead, frame it assertively. Actually, based on my research, people with my experience typically start around $80,000 to $90,000. Are you able to meet that range? By anchoring them to your number or range first, you grab control. Don't float an apologetic question like, "Is that reasonable?" That sells you short. Always come armed with the higher end of the ZOPA, zone of possible agreement. Once you anchor up, you'll see better offers follow. Lesson 3: silence and scarcity. Nice people often fill every pause with chatter or gush gratitude. Mistake! Experts say never over-explain or overthink during negotiation. Every word you say gives info and show of weakness. Instead, after an offer or counteroffer, practice strategic silence. Let the salesperson or manager break it. This simple tactic often nets a better deal. You can even say, "Is there any flexibility on that?" Then stay quiet. Similarly, scarcity of requests is powerful. If you wouldn't ask your best friend for a big favor immediately after just meeting them, don't do it with a salesperson or landlord either. Build a tiny relationship, a smile, a genuine compliment, or a shared interest, then make your ask. For example, I love this apartment. I see it's competitively priced, but my budget max is at X dollars. Is there any way to make the math work for me? You're still polite, but you're steering the conversation. Bottom line, you don't have to talk more to be nice. Sometimes letting a little something hang in the air makes them move. Lesson 4. Never thank until done. Ever notice how some people say thank you as soon as they hear a price? That's premature gratitude, and it backfires. It signals you think the deal is over, that whatever they just offered is fine. In reality, it pressures you to follow through, out of guilt or politeness, even if you could still negotiate. Instead, delay thanks until after you're satisfied. Keep saying I appreciate the info or got it, but hold off on real gratitude. And watch out for oversharing. Nice folks love to explain why they need a deal. I have 3 kids and a minivan to feed, but this can give the other side leverage or pity rather than cash. Instead, be brief. Given market data, JB performance bot Besmal budget, I believe X dollars is fair. If needed, use a short story about your value. Last year I brought in 20% more sales with minimal cost, so that merits commensurate compensation. That shifts the focus to your worth, not your needs. In negotiations, humility and niceness work against you. Assert self-respect without being rude. So here's the new thinking. Negotiation isn't a moral failing or personal attack, it's normal. Doing better for yourself doesn't make you selfish, it makes you smart. The friendly but firm approach is key. Remind yourself, every dollar you keep helps your family, future, or that small charity you care about. Reframe the conversation as solving a problem, not starting a fight. Instead of I don't want to offend, think I deserve fair value. It's a subtle mindset shift, but powerful. Being nice? Great. Being a pushover? Not so great. Now you know exactly why the two aren't the same. Start small. Next time you hear a price, pause. Ask one more question. I bet you'll be amazed what people will say to keep you around. If you've ever had a negotiation go badly because you were too polite, share it in the comments. You're definitely not alone. And if you try out these phrases and tricks, let us know how it goes. Remember, stay kind, but more importantly, stay smart. Your bank account will thank you.